He mocked her with $155 million, daring her to solve the unsolvable. What the billionaire didn't know. The waitress had a secret that would ruin him. The chandelier above the Grand Dubai ballroom glittered like a constellation of frozen stars. Beneath it, laughter, clinking glasses, and the scent of saffron and oud filled the air. It was a world built on excess, on money so vast it seemed untouchable. Yet in the corner of the marble floor, clutching her tray of silver-rimmed glasses, stood Layla, a waitress no one noticed. She was invisible. That was her strength. The billionaire, Khalid al-Rashid, sat at the head of a long obsidian table. His suit was cut so sharply it could have drawn blood, his expression sharp enough to rival it. With oil empires, real estate holdings stretching across continents, and an art collection worth nations, he was not a man accustomed to being challenged. But tonight, his voice boomed with mockery as he slammed a thick leather-bound puzzle box onto the table. "Solve this, and I'll give you $155 million. He sneered, his accent velvet and fire all at once. "Fail, and you'll be forgotten before sunrise." The room erupted with polite, fearful laughter. Everyone knew Khalid's games. He thrived on humiliating guests, crushing pride, proving that money wasn't just power. It was the weapon he wielded best. The puzzle box sat like a forbidden treasure, its bronze inlays catching the firelight. None dared touch it. None except the waitress. Layla's hands trembled as she balanced her tray, her eyes darting toward the box. Not because of the promise of wealth, she didn't believe men like him gave anything without strings, but because she recognized it. She had seen one once before, in a dusty attic in Alexandria, in her grandmother's forgotten chest. A puzzle older than dynasties, whispered to hold secrets men had killed for. Her breath caught. The billionaires, ministers, and heirs around the table leaned in, whispering. Someone muttered, "It's unsolvable. He's tried the finest minds in Cairo, London, even Tokyo. All failed." Khalid's smirk widened. "No one here has the courage. Perhaps money terrifies more than it tempts." A voice rose timidly from the side, and it was hers. I can try." The room stilled. Crystal glasses froze midair. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. A waitress in a faded uniform, hair pinned back in a cheap clip, skin browned from sun and struggle. For a moment there was silence, then laughter. Cruel, sharp, cutting laughter. But Layla didn't flinch. Khalid leaned back, intrigued. His dark eyes narrowed, gleaming like obsidian knives. "You," he chuckled, tapping a jeweled ring against his glass. "A servant dares where kings failed?" She set her tray down on the table. Her fingers brushed the box, cool metal meeting warm skin. And instantly her heart pounded. She remembered her grandmother's warning. This puzzle is not a game. It is a test. It reveals more than it hides. Layla swallowed hard, but her gaze didn't leave Khalid's. "What do I lose if I fail?" Khalid's grin turned dangerous. "Your dignity, perhaps more." For the first time, whispers turned uneasy. But Layla nodded once. "Then I'll try." She pressed the first panel. "Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I have missed you all. Missed all the experiences we've had together. It's been a rough ride as we're currently battling some technical issues, but trust me, we're getting everything back and running. So stick around. I need your support on YouTube now more than ever. Thank you specially for sticking around to this very moment. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy the story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now back to the story. A click. The box shivered in her hands, symbols sliding like constellations across its surface. The laughter in the room died abruptly. Even Khalid straightened in his chair. And in that heavy silence, Layla felt something stir inside her. An old memory, a promise her grandmother once whispered when she was only 6. "One day, Layla, your hands will unlock what others fear to touch. And when that day comes, you will choose who you are meant to be." Her throat tightened. Her fingers moved again. Another click. The first lock gave way. Khalid's jaw tightened, his smile faltering. Impossible, he muttered. But it was happening. Every second stretched like eternity as Layla worked. Symbols aligned, locks fell away, and with each movement, the room seemed to lean closer. The billionaire who had mocked her now watched, silent, his glass forgotten, until finally, the box opened with a soft hiss. Inside, on a bed of velvet, lay an envelope sealed with crimson wax. The room gasped. Layla looked up, and for the first time Khalid wasn't sneering. He wasn't mocking. His jaw had dropped, his expression stripped bare of arrogance. What stared back at her was shock, pure, naked disbelief. For a waitress had done what his wealth, his scholars, his arrogance could not. And in that fragile moment, Layla realized, this was not about money. It never had been. The box, the puzzle, the promise, it was a doorway to something else. Something bigger. And she had just opened it. If you were Layla, standing in that room with the richest man in the Middle East stunned before you, would you take the $155 million? Or something far more dangerous hidden inside that envelope? Comment below, what would you do? The ballroom was still buzzing, but Layla felt none of it. Her palms were clammy from touching the puzzle box, her breath unsteady, though she stood as still as marble. Khalid al-Rashid's stunned expression replayed in her mind like a broken reel. A billionaire humbled, if only for a moment, by her. But this wasn't where her story began. Layla was 24 and had never left the service world. By day, she poured tea and balanced trays for men who barely saw her. By night, she studied under the flickering bulb of her tiny apartment in Dara, flipping through torn notebooks and second-hand philosophy books. Her paycheck barely covered rent, and her mother's medical bills loomed like shadows over every sunrise. Her father, once a schoolteacher in Alexandria, had vanished when she was 10, leaving nothing but questions that her mother never answered. Layla's strength came not from abundance, but from absence. She remembered mornings in Alexandria where her grandmother, Amina, sat on the balcony overlooking the sea, telling her stories of puzzles and riddles once carried across deserts by traders and scholars. Your hands, Amina would say, holding them up to the light, are meant for truth, not servitude. But dreams were fragile things when weighed down by survival. Working at the Al-Rashid estate's private events was grueling. Waitresses were trained to be silent, invisible, and replaceable. Every misstep meant scolding, every dropped glass a deduction in pay. Yet Layla endured. She needed the job. Among her co-workers was Noor, a bright-eyed girl of 19, whose laughter carried like sunlight even in the harshest shifts. Noor often whispered, Layla, one day we'll leave this. We'll start something of our own. Maybe a cafe by the water. Imagine it. Layla smiled, though she never answered. She couldn't afford dreams. There was also Kareem, the head waiter, a stern man with kind eyes who had worked at the estate longer than anyone. He treated Layla with respect others denied her, sometimes sneaking her extra meals or covering for her when exhaustion slowed her steps. He knew she was different, sharper, watching more closely than she should. You see things, Layla, he told her once. Things others miss. Be careful. Men like Khalid don't like to be seen. That warning echoed now. The puzzle box she had solved wasn't just a trick of hands and eyes. It was something deeper. The symbols had felt alive under her touch, guiding her, as though her grandmother's voice was inside the box itself. Why did Khalid have it? And why, after her hands opened what no scholar could, did his eyes burn not with anger, but with recognition, as though he had just seen a ghost? Layla barely had time to breathe before the event ended. Whispers followed her like shadows. Some said she cheated, others that Khalid let her win. But she knew. She had done it. Still, the promise of $155 million hadn't materialized. Not yet. Instead, as the guests departed, Khalid's assistant approached her. A tall, severe man in a tailored suit named Marwan. He pressed a card into her hand. His Excellency requests your presence tomorrow, Marwan said curtly, his eyes sharp. Do not refuse. Layla's stomach tightened. Refuse? She couldn't, even if she wanted to. She tucked the card into her apron, hiding the tremble of her fingers. Her apartment smelled faintly of cumin and lavender, the last remnants of her mother's cooking and old incense sticks. Her mother, Hanan, lay on a thin mattress in the corner, her cough worsening each week. Medicines cost more than Layla could ever afford, yet she kept trying. "You look tired, Habibti," Hanan murmured that night, her hand weak but warm on Layla's cheek. "I'm fine, Mama," Layla lied, setting down the bread and tea she had carried home. Her mother's eyes lingered on her with quiet wisdom. "You're carrying something inside you, something your grandmother carried too." Layla froze. Her grandmother had died years ago. They rarely spoke of her now. "What do you mean?" But Hanan only smiled faintly. "When the time comes, you'll understand." That night, Layla couldn't sleep. Her mind spun between her mother's words, her grandmother's stories, and the heavy stare of Khalid when the box opened. She didn't want wealth. She wanted freedom, medicine, answers. Yet something told her the envelope inside that puzzle was tied not only to Khalid, but to her family. The next morning, as the sun burned gold over the Dubai skyline, Layla dressed in her plainest clothes and made her way to the estate. Every step felt heavier. Kareem stopped her at the service entrance. His brows furrowed. "I heard what happened last night. Layla, be careful. Men like Khalid don't summon waitresses unless they want something. And his wants can destroy people." Layla hesitated, then whispered, "What if I already destroyed his pride?" Kareem's lips tightened. "Then you've entered a game you don't understand." By the time she reached the marble steps of Khalid's private office, her heartbeat was a drum in her ears. The billionaire was waiting. The puzzle box was gone, but his eyes were sharper than knives. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to a chair across from him. And for the first time, Layla realized the $155 million wasn't the prize. It was bait. Whatever lay inside that envelope, whatever secret Khalid now guarded, was the beginning of something far larger, and she had just stepped into its center. Layla only wanted to survive and take care of her mother, but now she's caught the eye of one of the most powerful men in the world. If you were in her place, would you accept his invitation? Or run before it's too late? Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do? Khalid al-Rashid's office was nothing like the ballroom. It was darker, quieter, suffused with the smell of oud and leather. Tall windows overlooked the glittering city below, but the blinds were half-drawn, turning the world outside into muted streaks of gold. He didn't rise to greet her. He didn't smile. Instead, his eyes fixed on her like a hawk measuring prey. "Do you know what you opened last night?" Khalid asked. Layla shook her head, her fingers clasped tightly in her lap. "That puzzle was designed by artisans in the 12th century. It has passed through caliphs, conquerors, and kings. Do you understand what that means?" His voice was low, edged with steel. "No, sir," she admitted, though her heart whispered otherwise. She remembered her grandmother's attic, the stories she'd grown up on, the way Amina would whisper. "These puzzles carry truths written in silence." Khalid leaned forward. He slid a crimson-sealed envelope across the polished desk. Inside this was something no one else had the hands to touch. "No one but you." Layla's pulse quickened. The wax bore a strange symbol, two interlocking crescents, like mirrored moons. "Open it," Khalid ordered. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Inside lay a single sheet of parchment, yellowed with age, ink faded but still legible. It wasn't Arabic. It wasn't English. The script was winding, almost serpentine, like waves carved into stone. Layla frowned. And then, something strange happened. The words rearranged themselves before her eyes. Not physically, but in her mind. The symbols twisted, unlocked, and suddenly, she could read them. "The bearer of these hands shall awaken the path to the lost fortune of the ancients." Layla gasped. Khalid's gaze sharpened. "You can read it." She froze. I don't know how, but she did. Somehow, the language was alive within her, stitched into her memory like a secret she had never learned. Khalid rose, pacing behind his desk. "For years, I've gathered the brightest scholars, the most expensive cryptographers. None could decipher it. Yet you, he turned sharply, pointing at her. A waitress? His lips curled. Cracks it open in minutes. Anger burned in his tone, but beneath it was something else. Awe. Why me? Layla whispered. That, Khalid muttered, is the question. Before she could speak, the door opened. Marwan, the cold assistant, stepped inside with a silver case. He placed it on the desk, unlocking it with deliberate precision. The lid lifted, revealing stacks of US dollars, neatly bundled. Layla's breath hitched. It was more money than she had ever seen in her life. $155 million, Khalid said flatly. As promised. Her heart thundered. That money meant hospitals, surgeries, medicines, a future where her mother lived without pain. Noor's dream cafe by the water. Freedom. But Khalid's eyes locked onto hers, unblinking. On one condition. Layla's throat dried. What condition? You will work for me. You will continue what you started. That parchment is only the beginning. It points to something far greater, treasures, knowledge, power beyond kingdoms. And you, Layla, you will help me find it. The room spun. Work for him? A billionaire with enough money to bend governments? This wasn't a job, it was a trap. And if I refuse? She asked quietly. The silence was suffocating. Then Khalid's voice came, soft and dangerous. You will not refuse, because your mother's life depends on it. Her blood turned to ice. Marwan stepped forward, placing a folder on the desk. Inside were photos, her mother walking slowly to the clinic, her apartment door, even Layla herself on her balcony. Every detail of her life was documented. Khalid leaned close, his words a whisper of fire. Help me, and your mother will live in comfort. Refuse, and the world will forget you both. Tears pricked Layla's eyes, but she swallowed them. Rage simmered beneath her fear. He thought she was a pawn. He thought her desperation made her weak. But he didn't understand. Desperation was what gave her strength. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. When truth comes knocking, Layla, it will not ask permission. It will demand courage. She lifted her chin, meeting Khalid's stare. I'll help you, she said, her voice steady. But not because of your money. Not because of your threats. I'll do it. Because I want answers. Khalid's brow furrowed. Answers? Yes, she whispered. About why I can read this. About why I can do what no one else can. For the first time, Khalid looked unsettled. His confidence wavered for a heartbeat. Then slowly he smiled. Very well, he said. We begin tomorrow. When Layla left the estate that night, the city lights of Dubai no longer looked like jewels. They looked like flames. The game had begun and she was in the center. She walked past the fountains and luxury cars, clutching the card Marwan had slipped into her hand. Coordinates for their first meeting. Noor called her as she reached the bus stop. Layla, you sound strange. Did something happen at work? Layla hesitated, her voice catching. No, nothing. Just tired. She couldn't tell her. Not yet. But as the bus rumbled toward her tiny apartment, Layla knew her life had shattered into before and after. The inciting incident wasn't the puzzle. It wasn't even the parchment. It was Khalid himself, because she had seen the hunger in his eyes. A hunger that would consume anyone who stood in his way. And now she wasn't just a waitress. She was the key. Layla is being forced into Khalid's world. Her mother's life hanging in the balance. Her own power awakening. Do you think she should play along to survive? Or fight back against the billionaire's control? Drop your thoughts below. I want to know what you would choose in her place. The next morning, Layla stood at the edge of Dubai Creek, her breath catching at the sight before her. Khalid's yacht was less a boat than a floating palace. Gleaming white, for decks high, its flag snapping in the wind. The coordinates Marwan had given her had led here, to the docks where the powerful played. She clutched her worn bag tighter. The faint call to prayer echoed across the water, grounding her, reminding her that she wasn't one of them. She didn't belong here. Yet she stepped forward anyway. Marwan met her at the gangway, his face unreadable. You're late. It's 7 o'clock sharp, she said quietly. His eyes narrowed, But he didn't argue. Instead, he guided her aboard. The yacht's interior was lined with bookshelves, relics, and artifacts displayed in glass cases. Ancient coins, daggers, scrolls sealed in protective coverings. Felt less like a yacht and more like a moving museum. Khalid waited in a private chamber. His suit today was pale, almost casual, but the intensity in his gaze hadn't softened. On the table before him lay a stack of documents. Maps, weathered sketches, coded letters. He gestured to the seat opposite. "Sit." Layla obeyed, though her pulse raced. Khalid tapped the parchment she had deciphered the night before. "This is one of 12 fragments. Each leads to the next. Together, they reveal the location of something the world has forgotten." "What kind of something?" she asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Khalid's lips curved faintly. "A treasure older than any empire. A fortune built not in gold, but in knowledge. Knowledge that can shape nations." The words lodged in her chest. Knowledge. Her grandmother's whispers echoed. Truth doesn't hide forever. He slid another fragment toward her. Different script, faded and fractured. "Read." She looked down. At first, the ink swam before her eyes. Then, like before, it shifted, twisting into meaning. "In the desert where silence sings, beneath the dunes where shadows sleep, lies the door no man can open, except her." Layla's breath caught. Her. The word pulsed like a drumbeat. It wasn't coincidence. Whoever had written these centuries ago had known someone. A woman would unlock it. Khalid studied her reaction. "What does it say?" She hesitated. If she told him, she became his tool. If she withheld, she risked everything, including her mother. So she gave him half-truths. "It speaks of a desert. Of a door." His smile widened. "Good. Then we begin there." Over the next week, Layla's world unraveled further. She was pulled from her shifts at the estate and kept close to Khalid's circle, always under Marwan's watchful eye. Each day, Khalid presented new fragments, some etched in stone tablets, others inked on scrolls. And each time, the words bent themselves to her mind. Yet the more she read, the more she noticed something strange. Hidden in the verses were names, places, echoes of her family's past. One fragment spoke of the daughters of Amina, keepers of the key, her grandmother's name. Another mentioned the mark of crescent blood, a phrase that made Layla's veins freeze, because when she was a child, her grandmother had pressed a necklace into her palm, a silver charm shaped like two interlocking crescents, the same symbol that had sealed the envelope. This wasn't just Khalid's quest. It was hers. At night, when she slipped home, Noor noticed the change. "You're glowing one moment, haunted the next," Noor said, folding napkins in their shared kitchenette. "What's happening, Layla?" Layla forced a smile. "It's complicated." "Complicated like what?" Noor pressed. "You've been missing shifts. Kareem says Khalid himself requested you." "Layla, that's not good. Men like him." "I know," Layla snapped, sharper than she intended. Noor recoiled, hurt flashing in her eyes. "I just don't want to lose you. That's all." Guilt pressed heavy on Layla's chest. She wanted to tell Noor everything, but fear sealed her lips. To involve her would be to endanger her. Instead, she whispered, "One day, I'll explain. Just trust me for now." Noor nodded slowly, though her eyes held worry. By the 8th day, Khalid declared they were leaving the city. "The first fragment speaks of silence," he said, gesturing to a map spread across the yacht's table. "The Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter." Layla's heart pounded. The largest sand desert in the world. Vast, merciless, where dunes rose higher than towers and swallowed travelers whole. "You expect to find a door there?" she asked. "I expect you to find it," Khalid replied. Marwan smirked faintly at her unease, but Khalid silenced him with a glance. "Prepare yourself. We leave at dawn." That night, Layla couldn't sleep. The yacht's chamber was luxurious, but she felt like a prisoner wrapped in silk. She rose quietly, wandering through the corridors until she stumbled upon a smaller study lined with glass cases. Inside one sat a relic that froze her blood. A necklace. 2 interlocking crescents. Identical to the one her grandmother had given her as a child. Her fingers trembled against the glass. This couldn't be coincidence. Khalid had her family's relics. He knew more about her than he let on. Beautiful, isn't it? Layla spun. It was Marwan, his expression unreadable. She swallowed. Where did this come from? He smirked. Everything His Excellency owns comes from somewhere. Sometimes it's better not to ask. But Layla knew. She couldn't say how, but deep inside, she knew the puzzle, the fragments, the crescents. All of it was tied to her bloodline. And Khalid wasn't just chasing treasure. He was chasing her destiny. As the yacht rocked gently on the water, Layla returned to her room, her pulse racing. She lay awake until dawn, staring at the necklace hidden in her own drawer, identical to the one in Khalid's case. The mystery was no longer about $155 million. It wasn't about Khalid's greed. It was about her family, about why her grandmother had whispered riddles into her ear, why her mother had secrets in her silence, why she alone could read the words of the ancients. And tomorrow, in the burning silence of the empty quarter, she might find the answer, or she might not return at all. The mystery now connects to Layla's family, her grandmother's legacy, her bloodline, the crescent symbol. If you were Layla, would you keep following Khalid for answers, or break away and risk losing everything? Share your thoughts. Do you chase the truth or walk away? The desert stretched before them like an ocean of fire. Layla shielded her eyes as the convoy of black SUVs cut through the dunes, engines growling against the sand. Heat shimmered on the horizon, blurring sky and earth into a single sheet of gold. For hours they drove deeper into the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter. The farther they went, the more silence swallowed them. No roads, no signs of life, only the endless heaving of dunes like the breath of some ancient giant. Layla sat in the back seat with Marwan, Khalid in the front. The billionaire stared out the tinted window, his expression carved from stone. But Layla's mind wasn't on the desert. It was on the fragments, the crescents, her grandmother's whispers. Daughters of Amina. That phrase haunted her. How could words written centuries ago carry her grandmother's name? At sunset, the convoy halted. Khalid stepped out, his white robes whipping in the hot wind. The sand beneath their feet was fine as flour, slipping and shifting with every step. This is the place, Khalid announced, holding up the latest fragment Layla had translated. His eyes glinted with hunger. The desert where silence sings. Layla looked around. To her, it was nothing but dunes, shapeless, endless, merciless. How do you know? She asked. Because the fragment also spoke of stars, Khalid said. And tonight, the constellation aligns. He pointed toward the darkening horizon, where the first stars blinked awake. Layla's stomach churned. If he was right, something hidden for centuries might be revealed tonight. When the sky blackened fully, Khalid ordered torches lit. Shadows stretched across the dunes as Layla stood at the center, clutching her grandmother's crescent necklace. The stars above glittered in patterns she didn't fully recognize, until her vision blurred. Suddenly, the constellations shifted, forming lines, arrows, a map written across the heavens. Her breath caught. There, she whispered, pointing toward a dune that rose higher than the rest. It's there. Khalid's face flickered with triumph. Move, he barked to his men. Dozens of workers began digging, shovels biting into the sand. Hours passed until finally, metal rang against stone. They uncovered a buried archway, carved with the same serpentine script Layla had seen on the fragments. The doorway was sealed tight, no visible hinges, no lock. Layla approached. Her hand hovered over the stone, trembling. The carvings glowed faintly under her touch, like embers rekindled after centuries. A hum filled the air. Sand shifted. The arch trembled. And then, with a thunderous groan, the door cracked open. The men gasped. Khalid's eyes burned. After centuries, he whispered, it begins. Inside lay a staircase spiraling into the earth. The air was cooler, scented with dust and age. Torches flickered against walls lined with faded murals. Scenes of caravans, scholars, and women holding crescent-shaped relics. Layla's throat tightened. Women. Always women. At the bottom of the staircase was a vast chamber. In its center sat a pedestal, and atop it, a leather-bound journal, its cover etched with the twin crescents. Layla stepped forward, her pulse racing. The journal was ancient, fragile. Her fingers brushed the cover warm, alive somehow. She opened it. The script inside was the same serpentine language. And like before, it unfolded itself to her eyes. Her voice cracked as she read aloud. The knowledge we guard shall be passed to the daughters of Amina. When silence falls, they shall rise. Her vision blurred with tears. Her grandmother's name again. This wasn't coincidence. This was her bloodline. But before she could read further, enough! Khalid's hand slammed the journal shut. His gaze burned with feverish intensity. This belongs to me. Layla's stomach dropped. She should have expected this. Yet part of her had hoped he might share, might let the truth belong to them both. No, she whispered. It belongs to my family. Khalid's smile was razor-thin. Your family? They were keepers, nothing more. You are a vessel. And now you belong to me. Her chest tightened. Rage boiled inside her. But before she could answer, another voice echoed through the chamber. Don't believe him, Layla. She spun. From the shadows stepped a man in desert robes, his face partly hidden. He moved with a quiet confidence that made Khalid's men hesitate. Layla's heart skipped. There was something familiar in his posture, in the tilt of his head. Who are you? She whispered. The man lowered his hood. Her knees buckled. It was Kareem, the head waiter. Layla's breath hitched. Kareem? What are you doing here? Kareem's eyes softened. I tried to warn you, Layla. Khalid doesn't want the truth. He wants control. That journal doesn't hold treasure. It holds history. Your history. And he'll twist it for power. Her chest constricted. You knew. Kareem nodded slowly. I've known since the day you solved the puzzle. I didn't tell you because I feared this moment. But now you must choose. Khalid's face darkened. So, the rat reveals himself. Kareem ignored him, his gaze fixed on her. Layla, your grandmother wasn't just a storyteller. She was a guardian. And so are you. The crescents aren't symbols, they're keys. Keys to knowledge that could either heal the world or destroy it. Layla's hands shook around the necklace. Her grandmother, her bloodline, guardians? She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but her voice broke. Why didn't anyone tell me? Kareem's eyes glistened. Because truth is dangerous. And now Khalid will stop at nothing to claim it. Khalid stepped forward, gun drawn, the torchlight catching the steel. She belongs to me, Kareem. Step aside, or join the forgotten dead. Layla's body went cold. A gun. A choice. A truth she wasn't ready for. Her entire world shifted in that moment. Kareem, the man she thought was only a weary head waiter, was tied to her family's legacy. Khalid, the billionaire who had mocked her, now looked at her like a weapon he needed to wield. And Layla herself, just a waitress days ago, was at the center of a war for knowledge written in her blood. Her grandmother's words thundered in her ears. When the truth finds you, Layla, it will demand courage. And now courage meant choosing between two men, the billionaire who promised power at the cost of her soul, or the mentor she never knew she had, who had lied through silence, yet claimed to guard her destiny. If you were Layla, who would you trust in that chamber? Khalid, with all his power and wealth, or Kareem, who may be hiding truths but claims to protect your family's legacy? Comment your choice. Khalid or Kareem? The chamber seemed to shrink, the torchlight flickering wildly across the murals of women with crescents in their hands. Shadows stretched like claws on the walls. Layla stood frozen between Khalid's gun and Kareem's plea. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her necklace burning against her chest as though alive. For a heartbeat, time held still. Then chaos erupted. Khalid's men surged forward, their boots pounding against the stone. Kareem grabbed Layla's arm and yanked her toward a side passage. Gunfire cracked, ricocheting off the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. "Run!" Kareem shouted. They sprinted down the narrow corridor, torches casting frantic light. Layla's lungs burned. Her legs screamed, but adrenaline carried her. Behind them, Khalid's voice bellowed. "Bring her back. Alive! Alive!" That single word made her stomach twist. He didn't want her dead. He wanted her controlled. They burst into a smaller chamber where the air was colder, almost damp. Kareem slammed the heavy stone door shut behind them, bolting it with a rusted iron bar. Layla collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Kareem's face was etched with regret. "Because if you knew, Khalid would have smelled it on you. He's hunted this truth for years. I thought I could keep you safe." "Safe?" Layla's voice cracked. "My mother's being watched. Noor doesn't even know what's happening. And now Her words broke. "I'm trapped in something I never asked for." Kareem's hand trembled as he placed it on her shoulder. "I know, and I'm sorry, but you must believe me. You're the only one who can guard what's hidden here. If Khalid takes it, the knowledge will be twisted. He'll use it to bend nations to his will." Tears blurred her vision. She wanted to believe him, but he had lied by silence for so long. And now, she was supposed to carry a weight centuries old? She was just a waitress. The iron bar on the door groaned. Voices shouted on the other side. They didn't have long. Kareem pulled a small leather-bound notebook from inside his robes. He pressed it into her hands. "This belonged to your grandmother. She entrusted it to me when you were a child. I was meant to give it to you when you were ready." Layla's breath caught. Her grandmother's journal. Her trembling fingers opened it. Pages of ink and sketches stared back. Symbols, poems, drawings of crescents, fragments of maps. And scrawled in the margin, her grandmother's handwriting. "When silence swallows the world, she must decide if she will keep the light or surrender it." Layla's vision swam. Her grandmother had known this day would come. Her lip quivered. "Why didn't she tell me?" Kareem's eyes softened. "Because she feared the weight would break you. But you're stronger than she ever dreamed." The iron bar cracked. Dust rained. Khalid's men were breaking through. Kareem's grip tightened on her arm. "Listen to me. You may feel weak now, but you are the key. Not the crescents, not the fragments. You must survive this." And then the door exploded inward. Khalid's men swarmed. Kareem fought with desperate ferocity, but he was outnumbered. Layla screamed as they struck him down, blood streaking the stone floor. "No!" she cried, clawing against the arms that seized her. "Don't hurt him!" But they dragged her back, her grandmother's journal torn from her hands. Khalid strode into the chamber, his suit immaculate despite the dust and violence. He looked down at Kareem, bleeding on the floor, then at Layla, bound and trembling. "Did you really think you could run?" he asked softly, almost kindly. "You belong to this. To me." Layla's chest heaved. Rage burned through her tears. "I'll never belong to you." Khalid's smile didn't falter. "We'll see," he signaled to his men. Kareem's groans echoed faintly as they dragged Layla out of the chamber and back through the dunes, the stars cold and merciless overhead. They threw her into one of the SUVs, wrists bound. The convoy roared back across the desert, leaving the chamber of her ancestors buried once more in silence. Layla pressed her forehead against the cool glass, tears streaking her face. She had nothing now, no journal, no necklace. They'd ripped it from her, no allies. Her mother was still sick, Noor was still in danger, and Kareem, if he lived, was broken because of her. Hopelessness crushed her chest. "This is what failure feels like," she thought bitterly. "This is how the world swallows you whole." For the first time since this began, she wished she had never touched the puzzle box, that she had stayed invisible, silent, safe. She was nothing, a servant, a fool. And yet, somewhere in that silence, her grandmother's voice whispered through memory. When truth comes, it will demand courage. But courage felt like a cruel joke now. Back at Khalid's estate, she was locked in a dimly lit room, lavish but still a cage. Guards stood outside. The curtains were drawn tight. Layla curled onto the velvet couch, clutching her knees, sobs breaking from her chest. She thought of her mother's frail hands, of Noor's laughter, of Kareem's weary smile before the men struck him down. And she thought of herself, just a girl who wanted a chance at life, now chained to a destiny too heavy for her shoulders. For hours, she wept until her body ached, until no more tears would come. When dawn broke, pale light slipping through a crack in the curtains, Layla lay hollow and silent. It was over. Khalid had won. And in that silence, in that hollow grief, Layla felt the weight of her grandmother's words press down harder than ever. If she surrendered now, the knowledge would be lost. Twisted, used to enslave. But how could she fight when she had nothing left? Her answer had not yet come. This is Layla's lowest point. Stripped of allies, her grandmother's legacy stolen, and her spirit nearly broken. If you were in her shoes, what would keep you going? The memory of loved ones, the promise of truth, or the hunger for revenge? Share your thoughts. I'd love to know what your driving force would be. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Hours bled into one another. Layla sat curled against the velvet couch, her wrists still bruised from the ropes that had bound her in the desert. Her mind was a storm of loss. Her grandmother's journal ripped away, Kareem bleeding on the chamber floor, her necklace stolen. Every tether to her family's legacy was gone. She whispered to herself, "It's over." But silence answered back, and within it, a memory stirred. She was 6 years old again, sitting cross-legged in her grandmother's attic in Alexandria. Amina's wrinkled hands held the silver crescent necklace, its curves glinting in the shaft of sunlight. "Do you know why this matters, Layla?" her grandmother asked. Layla had shaken her head. Amina had leaned closer, her eyes shimmering. "Because one day the world will try to break you. And when it does, this will remind you you are more than what they see. You are the keeper of a light they cannot destroy." Layla remembered giggling, not understanding. But Amina had kissed her forehead and whispered, "The light is not in the necklace, Habibti. It is in you." The memory shattered her grief. Khalid had taken the necklace, yes. He had taken the journal, the fragments, the symbols. But he hadn't taken her. The keeper of the light wasn't the relic. It was her. Wiping her tears, Layla forced herself to scan the room. Lavish though it was, Khalid had underestimated her. On the ornate desk sat the crimson-sealed envelope she had first opened. He must have discarded it, considering it worthless now that the parchment was gone. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. The wax seal was broken, but when she tilted it toward the light, she saw faint impressions, hidden etchings carved into the wax itself. Twin crescents, and beneath them, a series of tiny dots, almost invisible. A code. Her breath quickened. She remembered her grandmother's journal before it was ripped away. Margin notes about stars, maps, coordinates. The dots weren't random. They were a constellation. And not just any constellation. She recognized it from the desert sky. The same stars she had seen above the archway. Her heart pounded. The parchment fragments weren't the only guide. The seal itself was another map, hidden in plain sight. Khalid didn't know, and that meant she still had a chance. Her chest tightened with a surge of resolve. She had been grieving as though everything was gone, but the truth was still alive. It was inside her memory, her blood, her mind. She rose, shoulders squaring. She was no longer the invisible waitress who poured drinks in silence. She was her grandmother's granddaughter, the daughter of Hanan, the keeper of Amina's light. Khalid thought she was broken. He thought he had won, but he had only lit the fire. As night deepened outside, footsteps approached. The door creaked open and Marwan stepped in, carrying a tray of food. His eyes flickered over her, expecting despair, perhaps. But what he saw was different. Layla stood tall, her gaze sharp. Marwan hesitated. "You look changed." Layla's voice was steady. "You don't have to do this, Marwan. You're a servant like me. Khalid uses you, too." He snorted softly. "I am nothing like you, But his words lacked conviction. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You think he'll reward you when it's over? No. Men like him don't share power. You've seen it. Marwan's jaw clenched. He looked away. Layla pressed on. Help me escape. Help me finish what my family started. And maybe, for once, you won't just be his shadow. For a long moment, silence stretched. Then, with a subtle shift, Marwan placed the tray down and muttered, The guards change at midnight. 10 minutes. Be ready. Layla's pulse raced. She had lit the spark. As the hours crawled toward midnight, Layla etched the constellation from the wax seal into her memory. Each star, each line. She didn't know exactly where it led, but she knew it was the key Khalid hadn't seen. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from anticipation. She whispered to the memory of her grandmother, I won't surrender the light. I promise. When the knock came, faint and urgent, she was ready. Marwan opened the door, his face taut. This way. Quietly. They slipped down shadowed hallways, past slumbering guards. The estate was a maze of marble and glass, but Marwan moved with precision. Layla clutched the envelope to her chest, the wax seal like a burning ember in her palm. For the first time since the desert, hope surged. As they neared the service exit, Layla whispered, Why are you helping me? Marwan's eyes met hers, conflicted. Because I'm tired of being invisible. Her breath caught. That was her. The waitress no one saw. The servant everyone dismissed. And now, invisibility was their weapon. Layla stepped into the night air, the desert wind rushing against her face. For the first time, she wasn't running from despair. She was running toward destiny. She had nothing but a broken seal, a stolen moment of freedom, and the fire her grandmother had lit inside her. But it was enough. Layla has realized the power isn't in the relics. It's in her, and she's chosen to rise instead of surrender. If you were her, would you risk everything on a fragile chance to escape, or wait in safety and hope Khalid slips? Share your choice below. I want to hear your instincts. The desert wind whipped through the night, carrying the scent of dust and smoke. Layla and Marwan crouched behind a dune, breath ragged, the estate glowing like a jewel in the distance. For a fleeting moment she thought they had escaped, but the sudden roar of engines shattered that hope. SUV headlights flared across the dunes, slicing through the dark. Khalid's men. They had discovered the missing servant and the waitress who had dared to run. Marwan cursed under his breath. We don't have much time. Layla gripped the envelope tighter, her palms slick with sweat. The wax seal's constellation burned in her memory. She had no weapons, no allies except Marwan, and yet something inside her surged with defiance. She was done running. The SUVs tore across the sand, closing fast. Marwan grabbed her arm. We can still disappear into the desert. Layla shook her head, eyes blazing. No, I can't run forever. This ends tonight. Before Marwan could protest, she rose from behind the dune, standing tall in the headlights' glare. The vehicle screeched to a halt, sand spraying in waves. Men spilled out, rifles raised. And from the lead car stepped Khalid, immaculate even in the chaos, his expression a mix of fury and fascination. Remarkable, he said, his voice carrying across the dunes. Even broken, you burn brighter than most. Layla's heart hammered, but her voice held steady. I'm not broken, and you'll never own me. Khalid's smile was sharp. But I already do. Your bloodline belongs to me now. The journal, the fragments, the knowledge, they're mine. She lifted the envelope, the wax seal glinting faintly under the moonlight. Not all of it. For the first time, Khalid's composure faltered. His eyes narrowed. Layla's voice rose, carried by the desert wind. You think the crescents were about power? About treasure? You fool. They were never meant for men like you. They were meant for women, for daughters, who would guard the light against the darkness of greed. The guards shifted uneasily. Khalid barked. Lies. Layla held the seal high. This constellation points to the final key, and I am the only one who can read it. You can kill me, but then you'll lose everything. Or you can face the truth. Your power is worthless without me. Khalid's jaw tightened. For a moment, silence blanketed the desert, broken only by the hiss of wind. Then he raised his gun, leveling it at her chest. If you truly believe the light is yours, he sneered, prove it. The crack of a shot split the air, not from Khalid, but from the darkness beyond the dunes. One of his guards collapsed, rifle clattering against the sand. Chaos erupted. More shots rang out. The men scrambled for cover. From the shadows limped Karim, bloodied but unbroken, a pistol in hand. His eyes locked onto Layla's across the chaos. You're not alone, he shouted. Her chest swelled. Against all odds, he had survived. Khalid roared, fury igniting his features. Kill them both! Gunfire exploded across the dunes. Layla dropped to the ground, sand stinging her face. Marwan dragged her behind cover, returning fire with a rifle he'd snatched from a fallen guard. Karim staggered closer, his face pale but resolute. Layla! The constellation, it points to the oasis of Wadi al-Noor. I saw it once with your grandmother. That's where it ends. Her pulse thundered. Wadi al-Noor, the Valley of Light. She remembered the name whispered in her grandmother's stories. It was real. Khalid advanced through the gunfire, relentless, his gaze fixed only on Layla. Do you think you can run to your fairy tale? Do you think your grandmother's myths will save you? Layla rose, her voice cutting through the chaos. They're not myths. They're my blood. And no matter what you do, I will guard them. Khalid snarled, lifting his gun again. But before he could fire, Layla hurled the envelope into the flames of a burning SUV. The wax seal cracked, the constellation glowing briefly before it turned to ash. Gasps rippled through the men. Khalid's face twisted in horror. What have you done? He roared. Layla's voice rang with defiance. You'll never own the light. Not now. Not ever. The gunfire slowed. Khalid and Layla stood locked in a stare that burned hotter than the desert sun. Around them, his men hesitated. Some wavered, unsure whether to obey their master or the truth they had just witnessed. Karim, bleeding but unbroken, called out, Look at her! She carries the fire of her ancestors. She's not a servant. She's the heir to Amina's light. The words struck like thunder. Layla felt the weight of generations surge in her veins. Khalid sneered, but his eyes betrayed something he had never shown before, fear. For the first time, the billionaire who mocked her, who tried to own her, realized the truth. She was beyond his reach. With a final roar, Khalid lunged, aiming his gun. But Marwan, the man who had once served him in silence, stepped forward. With steady hands, he fired a single shot. Khalid staggered, shock flooding his face. His gun slipped from his grasp. He collapsed into the sand, the desert swallowing his last breath. Silence fell. The guards lowered their weapons. Some dropped them entirely. Without Khalid's iron grip, their loyalty dissolved into the night air. Layla stood trembling, the stars blazing above her. It was over. Karim stumbled to her side, his hand warm against hers. His voice was ragged but steady. You did it, Layla. You broke his hold. She looked at Khalid's fallen body, then at Marwan, who stared at her with something like awe. No, she whispered, her voice filled with quiet strength. We did it. My grandmother, Karim, even you, Marwan. The light was never meant for one. It was always meant to be shared. And for the first time in her life, Layla truly believed it. Layla stood her ground and chose to burn the last clue rather than let Khalid control it. If you were in her place, would you destroy the secret to protect it? Or risk keeping it alive but vulnerable? Comment your thoughts. I'd love to see how you'd handle that choice. The desert was quiet again. No gunfire, no shouts. Only the hiss of wind moving across the dunes, smoothing away the chaos of battle. Khalid's body lay still, half buried in sand, his empire crumbling with his last breath. His men had scattered into the night, some fleeing, others surrendering to the weight of what they had witnessed. But Layla did not look at them. She looked at the sky. The stars above burned brighter than ever, the same constellations her grandmother had once traced for her with trembling fingers. They no longer seemed distant. They felt like home. Karim leaned heavily on Marwan's shoulder. His wounds deep but his spirit unbroken. His voice was hoarse. "We need to move. Khalid's death won't erase the danger. Others will come." Layla nodded, her resolve clear. "Then we go where the light leads, Wadi al-Noor." Marwan looked at her, still breathing hard from the fight. His eyes carried something new, respect. "You think the Valley of Light is real?" Layla's lips curved in a faint smile. "I don't think. I know." Days later, they traveled together, Layla, Karim, and Marwan, across the shifting dunes. The desert tested them with heat by day and freezing winds by night, but something bound them now, a shared mission. At dawn on the 5th day, the sands gave way to stone cliffs. Nestled within was an oasis unlike any they had ever seen. Date palms arched skyward. Water shimmered like glass, and carved into the rock walls were symbols, twin crescents, glowing faintly in the sunlight. Layla's chest tightened. Her grandmother's whispers echoed. When silence swallows the world, she must decide if she will keep the light or surrender it. She had chosen. At the heart of the oasis, hidden behind vines and stone, they found a cavern. Inside, the air was cool, alive with the scent of earth and water. Torches revealed walls etched with history. Generations of women, scholars, healers, poets, passing crescents from hand to hand. Layla's fingers brushed the carvings, tears stinging her eyes. She whispered, "This is it. This is the legacy." At the chamber's center stood a pedestal, and upon it, a crystalline crescent glowing softly with inner light. Karim's voice trembled. "Your grandmother brought me here once. She told me it would wait for you." Layla approached, her steps slow, reverent. She lifted the crescent, its glow spilling across her skin. It was warm, pulsing with life, as though her grandmother's hands still guided her. For the first time, she didn't feel like a servant or a pawn, or a girl too small for destiny. She felt whole. They stayed at the oasis for days, resting and gathering strength. Karim's wounds began to heal under Layla's care, her hands steady with purpose. Marwan, once Khalid's shadow, spoke little. But one evening, as they sat beneath the stars, he finally whispered, "I followed him because I thought power was the only way to matter. But you," he hesitated, "you showed me that being unseen doesn't mean being nothing." "Thank you." Layla smiled gently. "None of us are nothing, Marwan. We just need someone to see us." His eyes glistened with unspoken emotion. Weeks later, Layla returned to Cairo. She walked into her small apartment, sunlight streaming through the window onto her mother's frail frame. Hanan's eyes widened. "Layla?" Layla rushed forward, gathering her mother into her arms. Tears soaked both their cheeks. "I thought I lost you," Hanan whispered. "You never will," Layla said fiercely. "I promise." And when Noor came running from school, laughter spilling from her lips, Layla scooped her sister up and held her close. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of the future. She was ready to guard it. At night, Layla sat by the window, the crystalline crescent glowing softly on the table beside her. Karim had returned to the oasis to guard it, while Marwan chose to start anew in Alexandria. But Layla knew her journey was only beginning. She would study, teach, and share her grandmother's wisdom with the world, not as a weapon, but as a light. Her voice carried softly into the night. "I was invisible once, but no longer. I am Layla, daughter of Amina's line, and I will never let the light be lost." The waves of Cairo's coast crashed against the shore. Stars glittered above, eternal witnesses to her vow. And deep in her heart, Layla felt her grandmother's presence, whispering with pride, "The light lives in you, Habibti." Layla's story ends with victory, healing, and a new purpose. If you were in her place, would you keep the secret legacy hidden to protect it, or share it with the world to inspire others? Comment your choice. I'd love to know how you'd carry the light. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.